The comments and statements made within the show are the opinions of the commentators and their guests, have not been evaluated by the FDA, and are in no way attempt to diagnose, treat, mitigate, cure, or prevent any disease or illness. The contents of the show are not to be construed as medical advice. If you have a health condition or health concern, please contact a licensed, qualified healthcare practitioner.
Oh my, what have you found, Franny? Let's see what they say. Latest and greatest. You found more. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Excellent sleuthing, Fran. Fran, I think this is a new case for the Supplement Super Sleuth. Dig, Franny, dig! Time to go down the rabbit hole and see what we can find. Goodness, where are we? Aha! Take a look at this. Hi, this is Nan, Supplement Super Sleuth, and we're going to have a really fun day today. This is episode 39, and it's Naturals in the Know. And we're going to have a special guest today. Our special guest is Jeff Kinnear. He's a licensed Oriental medical practitioner with private practice in Erie, Pennsylvania. He has had a traditional Chinese medicine clinic for over 15 years, promoting healing by rebalancing his patients' qi. And he's going to talk about qi today. Through the use of acupuncture, moxibustion, diathermy, tuina, cupping, and herbal nutritional lifestyle consultations. As an offshoot of his love of traditional Chinese medicine, Jeff has also been an avid student and teacher of various forms of martial arts. He's been doing that for over 30 years. And that also includes the ancient practices of Tai Chi, Qigong, Jingyi, and Kunanto. And the study and use of medicine has been strongly linked with his martial arts. And also traditionally, we see that link. Martial arts is an arm of traditional Chinese medicine. And he uses both to enhance the efficacy of his healing work with his patients. So here he is. Oh, good. He is coming on. Here he is today. Here, everyone. Welcome, Jeffrey, on our podcast. Hi. What a great skull you have behind you. I absolutely love it. That's some medicine, huh?
The bison medicine.
Very nice. I totally love it. Jeff, I just introduced you, and I'm sorry you weren't completely on to hear it, but I did let my listeners know your tremendous background. And I kind of want to start off just by you telling your story. And I really love that you've been in martial arts, and that kind of led you to this whole other world of healing. And I want you to share that with our listeners here today, if you don't mind.
Not at all. My journey started with a love of Asian culture and Asian martial arts. And originally, I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania and moved to Cleveland, Ohio, which was culture shock.
Needless to say.
Yeah, from a very rural area into a very populated area, and all the different cultures and ethnic food restaurants and things like that. It just really fascinated me, and I began to study martial arts. And going through some of those classes was pretty demanding and exhausting, and I started consuming copious amounts of ginseng to have more energy, or as most people get started there.
Yes, they do.
And then in the early days, one of the few books you could get was Ron Teagarden's Chinese Tonic Herbs.
Yeah, love that book. It's in my library.
Yes, indispensable.
Yes.
And that was long before he started making any products or anything like that himself either. And most of that stuff was mail order back in that time. There was no internet and things like that. So looking for sources even to acquire the ingredients was a task. But luckily in Cleveland, there was an Asian grocery store and plaza, and one of the owners of it, it was kind of like a knickknack shop, but he was very amenable to uh, Chinese herbs and things like that. So I would attempt to write down some of the characters, and he would like tutor me and say, "Oh, you don't need to do it this way. You can do it like that." Because I wasn't sure I was pronouncing things correctly, and if you ask for the wrong thing, you get something
You get
completely different.
something else. Right.
Yeah. And I took that book with me, and shortly after that, he produced his own copy of the book that I think inspired him to go out and get that. And I asked him about some of the recipes and things like that, and even other things, because he knew uh, my martial arts teacher frequented that shop also, and he said that he was pretty confident that he practiced some Tai Chi or something himself. But all those things just gel together. As you'd mentioned, we have, depending on who you talk to, there's 5 branches of Chinese medicine.
Right.
Sometimes they say 4 because they combine food therapy and herbs together.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
understanding of massage and acupuncture points, the energetic body system,
Mhm.
and
And the exercise as medicine too. I mean, the whole piece of Tai Chi, which is so incredible, is how that also opens the channels as well and balances the channels from right to left. And it's a tremendous body of um, range of motion that is self-healing. I just love Tai Chi. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And in my second martial arts family, a lot of that is incorporated in there. So much so, and I'm sure being an acupuncturist, people ask you, "Do you kneel yourself?" And, and I said, "Well, I can, but one of my attitudes is that if I can't correct it from the inside, that it's harder to go from the outside unless it's a mechanical problem. There's a tight muscle or an injury that you need to use more of the um, structural parts of
Yeah.
acupuncture.
Yeah.
Energetically, we should be able to put our mind in different acupuncture points and activate them from the inside out. And that particular family of internal martial arts uh, is focused around teaching in that style. In the Bagua, the Tai Chi, the Xingyi that we do, you line up the points and you activate them with your mind, or you line them up structurally to create the movements.
It's tremendous. It is a whole body, and it's meant to be all together. And I think one of the things that happens here in the West is that we compartmentalize. I mean, we compartmentalize Western medicine as well. And sometimes the right doesn't know what the left is doing. So, and although we do have improved communication using, the internet and people's special, accounts where all their data can be stored in one place. I think the way that you approach it, Jeffrey, that's so um, it's so harmonious, and it's also in keeping with the original herbalism or medicine of the body of medicine is uh, kind of seeing it from this is one piece, right? The external, the internal, the herbs, the food, it's all one piece. And you could separate it, and each could be its own body, but it really is meant to kind of work together, to bring balance and harmony in the body and the mind and the spirit. So, yeah.
Very much.
It's wonderful. It's so great. It's so great to have you here. I really want to thank you one more time, taking the time to sharing your knowledge and your journey. It's a never-ending journey, right? Um, so, some of the curiosities that a lot of people in the West have is, as a holistic practitioner, I mean, you're a physician of old, right? You help people find healing within them, and that's the old model, a very successful model, as I might say. It's not something that we should discard at all. But and you are very experienced. You have a very successful holistic practice. What do you find yourself teaching your patients the most? New ones, ones that have been in your practice for a long time, and it's, I think there's probably a continuum, something that we're missing in our culture here in the West. We have an incredible culture, and our own culture as it continues to grow, but there are pieces that are missing about health and healing, I think, here. And what do you tend to share the most? What do you find yourself sharing the most?
One of the sayings that I repeat um, often is, how do you define health? And in the West, it tends to come out like it's the absence of disease. So if you're not diseased, or i.e., something that we have a label for, we've identified, by default, you're healthy. And from a Chinese medicine point of view, holistic medicine, uh, the human body will get more, it'll do more, it'll overcome more for whatever you feed it, whatever you give it. So if you read more books, you get more knowledge, your IQ goes up. If you exercise, you get more muscle definition, more endurance. If you sleep better, you have a better temperament, you have better energy. If you bathe better, you smell better, people enjoy being around you. You can,
Yeah.
we can neglect all these things, and we're okay, and we can neglect the energetic body, the energetics of acupuncture and things like that, and not die a premature death. But if we take care of those things, if we measure health and vitality, and we fortify those things, and so switching from uh, managing a disease, finding a label, and trying to keep it in check or slow it down, to cultivating the weakest link in the chain. So if we find what part, what vital process in your body, what organ, what element is struggling the most, and if we can bolster that, the entire chain gets stronger. And that tends to be an ongoing, as you said, it's a repeat practice to help people get out of this pre-programmed mentality. Uh, One of the little sayings that bounces around as a meme on the internet is that the problem isn't that people aren't educated. The problem is they're educated just enough to believe what they're taught.
Wow.
We're taught what to think and not how to think, and
Yeah.
how to reinvent things and look at it from a different point of view. Because when your medical professional tells you, well, that's diabetes and you're going to need to take insulin, uh, and you accept that, then you're locked into that course of treatment.
Oh, yes.
To step back from that and say, we have 少克, thirsting and wasting disorder.
Thirsting and wasting. Yeah.
Yeah, and at what level, what organ systems are struggling, and if we fortify that, maybe we can eliminate diabetes. Maybe we can't, but maybe we can minimize the amount of pharmaceuticals that you need uh, to have a larger therapeutic window. So if we can slow down the need for um, metformin and Januvia and all these other things, slow down the need for insulin shots, then in the future, if you need to increase that medicine, you have the window to do that.
Right. You have somewhere to go, right? Yeah. That's really beautifully said. I think, and it also demonstrates holistic practitioner, especially from you, and also from me. I feel very much the same way you do, as um, there's a way to partner with Western medicine, um, and find harmony there as well. So it doesn't have to be this or that. There can be somewhat of a, kind of an open communication within the context of partnering with Western medicine concepts. But I agree with you, and I thought, you were about to say something that I thought was, you were going in one direction, you went in this direction, and I was just I'm like, oh, I love how you think, and it's so beautiful because it is not a this or that. It is, and sometimes it's about having your best life within whatever limitations have developed in your body, right?
Yeah.
So someone will come in and they'll have something advanced like multiple sclerosis, which I see a lot of in my practice. And what does it look like to have your best life with something that has advanced so far, right? So we don't label it MS because there's more than several patterns that look like that. But what does it look like to live your best life in the context of something that has really spun out and spiraled out of balance, in that person? So it is it's a tremendous opportunity if the person is willing to have a practice, right? A discipline of
Mhm.
self-care. And this, of course, that's what that's where we come from, Jeffrey. I think you and I feel we're not fix-it shots. It's not come in, get a bunch of needles, or come in, get twina or get deep tissue or get cupping and then go home and you're all better. It isn't that. It's a process of a journey, of self-discovery and constantly finding that place of balance in the context of your age,
Mhm.
anything else that's happened, right? Your history, your health history, where your mind is, where your heart is, right? All of that. So
Very much.
it's very, very true. So, we had a little conversation, and you'd mentioned your interest in long time use of tonics and tonic herbs. And of course, Ron Teagarden's all about tonics. And
Mhm.
that I don't think, well, first of all, I would love if you don't mind sharing some of your favorite tonics and those practices that kind of what does it mean to you to use a tonic, and what does it look like when someone engages in the use of tonics? But I just don't think Americans really get it, even when I say it. So it'd be really great to hear how you explain it to your patients, because that's a place where Americans are like, what, you mean I have to take this for 6 months? What, are you crazy? you know
Mhm.
so it'd be great to hear your take on it, Jeffrey.
I think and again, with the pattern discrimination that we have in Chinese medicine, which I like the pattern discrimination verbiage as opposed to even diagnosis, because uh, it can look like this and it can look like that. It can be parts of different things. Uh, but to get to the core of that weakest link in the chain, to figure out which organ is struggling, uh, largely represented by the five elements and the Zongfu pairs that we use, uh, to figure out which of those organs are connected to the majority of the symptoms, the branches or leaves on the end of the tree that we're trying to address, so we can get to bolster that. Just like if you have an orchard, an apple tree, and that apple tree starts to show signs of disease, you don't cut that tree off and stick an apple seed in the ground and expect to have apples next year. You have to work with what you have. Uh,
Yes.
and as you said, the best life within what's available to us in the current situation. So we need to nourish and fortify the soil around the tree, make sure it gets enough moisture, enough sunlight, something to help minimize the pests that would attack it. And the same is true of our internal organs. And tonic herbalism works in that way. It's not even like multivitamins in the West. The idea of we're just going to give you the basic building blocks. Here's like cement blocks and 2x4s. This is to build a house, but that doesn't mean that you have a good contractor who's going to design or construct a beautiful house. We can have enough magnesium in
Exactly.
our bloodstream or enough
Right.
iron for red blood cells and things, and that doesn't always guarantee that the cells are using them properly. And tonic herbalism is different in that respect from my point of view, that we're using plants with hundreds of thousands of plant compounds. Science tells us that any given plant, even whether you pick it in the morning at sunrise or at noontime can have thousands of different chemicals active and present when it's harvested. And so you have the vitamins and the minerals, and you have the general contractor and the subcontractors all in this one package, in this thing made by nature for us to consume, to fortify those organs so that we have the best heart, liver, kidneys, lungs available given the circumstances. And that is what I try to explain with the words and the concepts that are difficult to express.
It so is.
Each patient, you like studying NLP. You observe the patient, you watch their eyes, and you see what words, what analogies click, and you have to speak in a language that they can relate to, instead of giving them a clinical breakdown or well, science has shown us that you need to take this herb, or this herb has this plant compound present, and I'm
Some
sure
people like that, but I find that's not always effective.
yes, you give those substances to people. You put them on that herb formula, and
Right.
it's not quite right for everyone all of the time.
Agreed.
It's an art form.
It is. It is an art form. It's something you study your whole life. What are your 3 favorite tonic formulas? What are your go-tos? Because I definitely have mine, but I'm just so curious to know what do you find yourself sharing with people who are in that 40 and above group? You know that group, right? They are in, especially if they're 40s, they're in denial that they're aging, complete denial. They have no idea they're aging. They think that's for when you're 70, not now, not when I'm 40, right? I'm in my late 50s, so
yeah.
I already went through that. But that is definitely a time that I see tonics. I mean, we can start tonics earlier for sure, but I find that it's that group that set going up that way that the tonics become really necessary. What are your 3 favorites?
Well, I think the single most important formulas is Suwutong, the 4 things soup.
The 4 thing, yeah.
Blood. And in the original Chinese tonic herb book that Ron Teagarden wrote, in the back there's a little note about doubling each of those ingredients for each of the seasons. Because, as you said, saying here, this is something you need to take this for 6 months as a tonic. We can do it that way, but that's getting a little closer to even a Western scientific mindset.
Yeah.
And to be able to identify it's the kidneys or it's the liver that we need to tonify, and then figuring out how to switch up. Like in the summertime, it's warm, so you wouldn't want to use a warming formula to tonify the kidneys.
Yeah.
We would want to use a more of a cooling formula to balance things out.
Yeah.
And then when you go into the fall, to continue to nourish the kidneys, but do that from a different point of view. And within that concept of Suwutong, the 4 herbs, 4 blood tonifying herbs, we can modify each of those for different reasons, and I find a lot of beauty in that. So that's one of my primary favorite formulas. Of course, Sejunzatong, the qi and the blood go hand in hand.
Blood, yeah.
And then you put those together and you get Bajentong, or Sichuan Dabutong.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at all those almost as one formula. One of the other favorite formulas based on the patients that I see, and very diverse formulas with, I don't know if it's really considered a tonic formula per se, but Tianma Gotengan.
Oh, such a favorite of mine.
Yes.
Yes.
It works for migraine headaches. It works for seizures and spasms and twitches.
So much wind when they get older, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the liver and kidneys, if we keep them strengthened with that ingredient, that formula, then we're probably setting a really strong foundation for a long, long lifetime.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, and it's so interesting because that wind, wind stroke, the way that we see the wind stroke, you know, technically imperceptible by the West. They don't see it till after. And we can almost see it just before. And in that
Mhm.
the Tiama formulas are beautiful for really just kind of setting the stage to settle that liver wind, which can really just derange so much. But I love that. That's a favorite of mine for sure. I totally agree with you, Jeffrey.
And I think the
Uh,
other most diverse like formula, if you're getting into Chinese medicine balancing formulas, would be Gui Pi Tong would be like one of the other heavy hitters.
oh, it's a heavy hitter. Yeah. Lu Wei Di Wang Wang, that's something that I see a lot in my practice, but yeah. Gui Pi Tong, so interesting. I have people, when I go to give it to them, it's so cloying that I kind of have to give Bahawan or something, that will help with the digestion, but so much digestive disorder in our culture.
Hmm.
But yeah, those are great. They're so fundamental, aren't they? Fundamental formulas.
Yes.
So terrific. Great. I guess my last biggest question, of course, and I want you to feel free to just talk about what you want to talk about, sharing, some platform of like why Chinese medicine is, the way that you're sharing it with the world is, has its place and it has its importance. But I think the biggest question that I have is as a holistic practitioner in the West, what do you feel like is your biggest hurdle with reaching people and helping people to understand the importance, um, that what we have to offer plays a really important part and has, there should be more confidence. I feel like there should be more confidence. I mean, you spent a lifetime studying, you know, um, what you um, share as a practitioner, and you know notwithstanding, so have I, even though I've taken from more than one tradition. um, but I really feel like I have so much respect for you and for other practitioners who spent their life, and that kind of credibility and underscoring the credibility is really important to me. So, but I guess I'm really curious about like how you jump those hurdles, and bridge the gap for the community in your area to help more people come to see you and really get what they need. Yeah.
It is difficult, and I think the biggest um, obstacle is letting go of what we've been taught to look at things, and even science. Particle physics talks about there being more space than there is solid objects, and we get distracted by what we see in front of us and what we're taught, and how Western medicine is at the front of all of these things. It's science, and the insurance pays for it, and whether the insurance covers it or not, it is a determining factor. I can't do it if someone else isn't going to pay for it. To find those patients that are willing to make a lifestyle change, uh,
Right.
because having insurance involved and denying even what's, I'm sure if you deal with insurance at all, um, pre-authorizations. Um,
Okay.
you call and you get a pre-authorization, and you go through
Yeah.
the procedure. You get the order the pharmaceutical, and then the insurance declines coverage of it. Just having them in that mix and
Yeah.
letting them trust something that's thousands of years old.
Yes.
Uh, and as practitioners, we get to see this diverse client base. When you've been doing it for a long time, you have successes and a few failures here and there. But
Happens.
overall, you can trust the process because you see more often than not uh,
Yeah.
the success of it and how well it works. given the chance, given the dedication and the compliance, and having patients follow the instructions when they go home. Because I'm sure one of the questions I get asked, and probably you also, is
Yeah.
how clinically effective are you? And I feel like saying, well, how compliant of a patient are you going to be?
Exactly.
You
Right. This
walk,
is oddly a partnership.
yes. And the analogy, like the NLP, being a guide on the trail.
Yes.
I'm not your doctor. I'm not your keeper. I'm not
Right.
going to fix you. I'm going to walk with you and give you guidance and suggestion and feedback as we do this together. The other thing that I'm passionate about is not using the word alternative medicine. Like,
It's not alternative,
no,
is it?
it's a complementary medicine.
It's
We need both.
complementary. Yes, we
And
do.
Western medicine has made amazing advances, and I look forward to whatever they're coming up with next in these laboratories and research facilities all around the world. We need that too. But to think that a human being can be simplified down to a simple chemical equation, mathematics, or science, because in Chinese medicine we have no separate psychology. There's no separate
Right.
discipline of the mind. It's rooted in all the different internal organs. So understanding the counseling part of things helps refine that diagnosis, helps you choose the right acupuncture treatment for today and the right herb formula to send them home with, the right diet and nutrition, the right qigong. Uh, Years ago in Acupuncture Today, I think our one and only publication these days, um,
Yes.
there was an article about how we shouldn't be counselors and we need to leave
Oh,
that to the professionals. And
oh,
I regret not sounding off on that and voicing in there, because the way that I was taught is that it's all one. You can't separate the two. And
same
you're
with
not treating
me.
people holistically. If you don't understand um, their emotions, their financial struggles,
Yeah.
their spiritual struggles,
Yes.
then you're only administering to part of them. And Western medicine is far better at that. Like if you don't have cartilage between your joints and your knees or in your thumbs or shoulders, they can go in and fix that. And that's probably the most expedient uh, path to relief that there is.
Yes.
Uh, they're really good at that, but we look at the whole person and bring all those things together. And if we can get them to just set aside those diagnoses, to have the hope and the positive attitude, which is, and I've had patients say, "Oh, you have to believe in this to make it work," and I'm like, "No,
No.
because we do it on dogs, we do it on racehorses, right?"
Right. They don't
And
have
then,
the beliefs.
yes,
Yeah, we're the ones with beliefs. But right. It's
yeah.
absolutely
And
true.
so it helps though when you have a positive attitude. Placebo is very effective.
Very effective.
Very powerful tool
That's
if we can
how
give people something to believe in the process, the herb formula, the treatment as
helpful,
well.
not necessary.
Yes,
Yeah.
um, not necessary. We can still release a tight gluteus maximus when the muscles are impinging on the sciatic nerve and you have that electrical feeling shooting down your leg. We can get in there with needles whether you believe it's going to work or not
Right.
and provide some relief. And we can shift emotions. I'm sure you've had the cases over the years where you're working on something and maybe the patient, the client hasn't uh, fully informed you of some of the emotions attached to things. You start working on those things, and then they, yeah, some of these things that they need to process. We don't know that that's in there, and
No, they
then
come bubbling out. It's
yeah,
really interesting. It's like, oh, hi there, nice friend.
yeah. Sometimes on the table, sometimes in the next visit, you find out about the emotions of the old childhood memories, the traumas that
Mhm.
were attached to whatever ache
Yeah.
or pain that they just come in the front door for. And when we understand holistically and we can get them to embrace that attitude and that outlook, uh, we can be so much more clinically effective, because the question really isn't how effective are you. One of the observations that stuck with me from school was some of the clinic supervisors and teachers, not disparaging other students, but there were certain students that were, at the top of the class, and certain students that were struggling to find their feet, and different supervisors saying, I wouldn't let that person treat any of my family members.
Oh,
But yet, hearing from other patients in the clinic about that type of patient or student, raving about them, that acupuncture is so complete, so deep, that you can go in to do one simple thing and have such profound impact on so many other areas of the patient's life and the things that they're struggling with. It is all connected, and it facilitates healing and miracles, if we can use that word.
yeah. Let's use that word.
Yes, even without knowing or setting out to do those things.
Exactly.
That is a testament to its power. And if we can get people to understand what we've seen over 4 years of schooling and decades of practice, that
Right.
if you just trust in our process, like
Exactly.
the trust the science thing, you're supposed to question the science and question us,
Sure.
but invest in the process so that we can explore it together with you as your guide, as your companion on the journey, instead of the knee surgeon who goes in, they turn on the drip, you fall asleep on the operating table, and you wake up with a brand new knee. You're removed from that process. Someone else is doing that to you, where in our medicine, we're doing it with them. We're doing it for them. They're part of the process.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Jeffrey. Oh my goodness. I love that. It was really poetic. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say or share? Because we're coming to the end of our podcast time, but if there's something you just are inspired to say to anyone out there who might be listening.
Yeah, I think especially the seasonal harmonization. In the West, we have a calendar system that doesn't really measure the energetics or pay any attention to that. And to be able
Absolutely.
to shift gears, like the beautiful books behind you, in the wintertime, to get in wrap up in your warm
Wrap
blanket
up,
near the fire and read the books.
restore, and
Yeah,
yeah, the
do
deep
that.
water, right? The kidney, the bladder. Yeah.
Yes, and the brain being the marrow, and
The sea of marrow, one of
yeah,
my favorite connections. Yeah. I love it.
fortify
Yeah.
that when you're snuggled down as a bug in a rug in front of the fireplace, and then in the springtime start expanding outward, and in the summertime do other activities.
Yeah.
There's a time to address each of these things, so that it's not just you just take this for 6 months, or take this pill for
Yeah.
the rest of your life, or take this do these exercises, do these stretches. Each of those things should change so that we can harmonize with the seasons and have um, nature fortify us and be our ally as we heal and nourish and gracefully age, as you were saying earlier, going into
I
the
know.
40s and the 50s and later on, to surrender those things and time to adjust. We need a format and some guidelines for those things. And the Asian cultures, being old, ancient, and intact, have a
Exactly.
lot to offer in that respect, as
Yes.
opposed to, well, last year, Stanford or Harvard produced a study saying that senior citizens need to have more lycopene or quercetin or whatever. They start identifying these chemical
Or
compounds.
lift weights.
Yes,
Go out there and just lift weights. You're
yeah,
60 years old, go lift some weights. It's like, well, what about Tai Chi?
yes.
Right?
To follow these guidelines for increasing quality of your life, the
Exactly.
nourishing life. The idea in in our world of they call Yongshan, nourishing life, and all the things that go
Nourishing life.
along with that. That
Beautiful.
covers all the qigong and tai chi and things that you would do, and the herb formulas and the food changes in the seasons, soup
Yes.
in the winter, and different things in the spring and in the summer. We don't need to eat the same diet throughout the year. And we have this system, this categorization with the materia medica, to look at those different chapters and subjects and the different aspects of our bodies and our life force, and to be able to pay a little attention to each of those things instead of waiting until something breaks and going to the doctor / mechanic to, to have them fix us or give us a pill to override the problems that we could have prevented if we had a much more robust system to be able to administer to those things ahead of time. I think that's one of the most important things that we can embrace from the Chinese medicine point of view to add to the Western mindset and healthcare system.
Thank you so much. It was really a joy having you on the show today, Jeffrey. And I can't wait to share this with everyone who is listening to the podcast and sharing the podcast with friends and family too. You have such an incredible, gentle way of reminding us, educating us of the importance of the journey, and that it's shifting and changing, and paying attention to, not becoming rigid with our diet and rigid with, making our body do things versus listening and flowing with the seasons, with the age, with the time. It's good. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. And I hope you have an incredibly wonderful day. Thank you for coming on our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's just a joy. Hopefully, maybe again in the future, if you have something else you want to talk about, if you get inspired, we'll share it. We'll love to share it.
Certainly. I would love to.
Okay, great. Have a terrific day.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone. That was Jeffrey Kinnear. And he's a licensed Oriental medical practitioner in Erie, Pennsylvania. So for any reason, if you're in the Pennsylvania area, please reach out to him. We'll make sure that we have his website link connected with the podcast. So he is tremendous. Again, he's been a practitioner in traditional Chinese medicine for over 15 years. He's been a martial artist for over 30 years. And he is a gentle and very very highly skilled TCM practitioner. So, and if you're afraid of needles, just tell him you're afraid of needles and you want something else. And I'm sure he absolutely has a very large toolbox to help you balance yourself and find better life and better wellness. Okay, so as I close this episode, this is episode 39. You're probably, if you haven't heard of me, my name is Nan, and I'm the supplement super sleuth, and I've had a complimentary and herbal clinic for more than 30 years. My focus has always been difficult to treat conditions. I pull from a variety of herbal traditions, Chinese, traditional Chinese, Ayurveda, and Western herbal traditions. And I have been a spokesperson in the natural products industry. I did that for about it's almost 25 years. And I worked for some of the more reputable and well-known companies in the industry. You can connect with me in person by going to my website, www.watersedgewellness.com. And I also have the various social media sites, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. My TikTok account is called Herbal Answers, and I will be doing this podcast a couple of times a month. I think that's a cadence that I can keep up with. I'll be sharing perspectives of natural health and healing and interviewing key people just like Jeffrey Kinnear and thought leaders in the natural products industry. And if you don't mind, please subscribe to and like the Instagram or Facebook or TikTok pages, and reach out to me if you have any questions or if there's something you want to hear about. I'm more than happy to do an expose on something that you are really curious in. And with that, I'll say take good care of yourselves, and I will see you soon. Ta-ta for now.
Well, Super Sleuths, we've conducted a very thorough investigation of this case, and we've learned a lot. Fran, you can show us the way home now. What are you doing? Whoa! Fran, you're amazing! We're home! Tune in again for the next Supplement Sleuth adventure. Take good care, and Fran and I will see you soon. Say goodbye, Fran.